Okay, so I'm going to do another one of these page one critiques, but with a twist. It's my page one. Um, yeah, just general housekeeping. I'm all alone. The house is actually empty. People have gone out. Just Ruby downstairs with her dog toy that looks suspiciously like a marital aid, and she likes to thrash around. So if you hear some loud thumping, it's just her beating the hell out of herself on the furniture with this thing of hers. Um, and I'm doing this page one of mine partly to see if I actually carry out the suggestions that I make for other people myself, but mainly as a promotion for Unbound, which is Unbound II, which is coming out in December and has the story I'm going to talk about in it. Comes from Grim Oak Press, who do my anthologies. I do my anthologies, but they also do my omnibuses, and they're always really high quality, signed by people. Yeah, so I'm doing it to make you buy that, and I noticed that you're staring up at me from down below. Let's see if I can put this to use, raising you up a little bit. In fact, the reason you're low down is that the big fat boxed special edition omnibus that I normally sit this on is packed away. We're only still in the act of packing for this potential move. I think I will just replace it with another copy, not in a box. This is the one you can buy right now. This is number, I don't know if you can see that, number 998 out of 1,000, and there are 26 of the 1,000 still for sale on Grim Oak Press's website. This happens all the time with, seems to be of everything, that like when we open for the SPFBO, you get a sort of immediate rush, and in sort of half an hour 80% of the places are filled up, and then that'll grind on, it'll slow down sort of in a half a day, 95% of them are filled up, and then the last two will take it used to be several days. So the last handful used to take several days to fill in, and now they take several hours. And it's the same with these anthologies, that they go on sale. The lettered editions vanish within about 30 seconds. About 3/4 of the stock vanish within a day. And then there's this tail where people just seem more and more reluctant to buy the things. And so now we've got 26 left out of 1,000. And what happens is, let me just scroll down here. See if I can find the thing. When would it be? Probably May. So here's me giving away a copy of the omnibus for the Broken Empire to mark Prince of Thorns reaching 100,000 ratings. But the point here is that it took again, this followed the same pattern. It took a couple of years of me pushing. The vast majority of them sold very quickly, and then there was this tail that I just had to keep banging on about in order to get them to go. And then as soon as they were gone, it was like every week somebody on Twitter going, "Oh, nobody told me, and now I can't find any." And then there's people queuing up on eBay to buy the things as soon as they're sold out. And there was 26 left. You're having to sort of, wouldn't this make a lovely Christmas present? But when they're gone, people are going onto eBay and spending. Here you can see someone actually spent $650 on the $100 omnibus just because they couldn't get one in the shops. And they're a lovely thing. They've got illustrations in. They're signed by me and Jason Chan and the graphic designer. There's a novella, 25,000 word novella, which is the start of a new Jallan and Snorri book in the back of it, which is self-contained, and people seem to like it a lot. So go get them while they're hot. And yes, let's put this underneath so that you can regain your traditional elevation. On that self-promotion front, we're also at 1.49k subscribers. So someone subscribe and get me to 1.5, which is a eminently more likable number than 1.49. Okay, let's go back to where we were. This is a short story, so I mean, page ones of short stories probably follow similar rules to page ones of books. But this is my short story, a Jorg short story for the Unbound II anthology, and it's called Solomon. And obviously, you can't critique your own work in any sensible manner, but I can talk about it in the context of the things that I've been advising people to do. And we can rewind this to say that when I looked at the page ones of books, famous books that that I really enjoyed, and then looked at how they put their page ones together, we saw all sorts of different ways of doing it. So the sort of advice that I talk about, which is the focus on one or two characters, get some dialogue in there, have a problem, have some action of some sort, even if it doesn't have to be plot related, just something to exercise those characters to get the blood pumping, so to speak. That's basically a 101. That's a sort of I'm struggling to write a good page one. How should I do it? I say, go for that, because that's a relatively easy way to get things working. And we saw in the page ones for these really good books that are done really well in the market, that there are all manner of approaches to it that are alternatives. They say that there's many ways to skin a cat, though you don't see those ways advertised really very much, do you? I used to have a book called 101 Uses of a Dead Cat, but I'm rambling on a tangent here, so let's get back to the story. So there's a photo of the first page that Sean has given us all these little graphics. So open them up, and because it sort of starts halfway down the page, what I'm talking about down here is this and a little bit more from the next page that makes up a page. All in all, I'll read it out for my customary lack of skill. Details matter. Most people would say that there's never a good reason to cut a baby in half. I maintain that you should never cut a baby in half without a good reason. You see the difference? They say that the devil conceals himself in the details, and some think that's quite a trick, but in my experience, the whole of hell can hide behind a single comma with room to spare. In ancient literature, heroes from Gilgamesh to Superman are halted in their tracks not by giants or dragons, but by moral dilemmas. For my part, laying no claim to heroism, I've tended to overcome the moral dilemmas in my path by ignoring them, by cutting through them like the Gordian knot or Solomon's famous baby problem, or, in most cases, simply by failing to notice their existence. Life with my road brothers tended to flatten the moral landscape into something more easily traversed and with fewer tripping hazards. But in my 14th year, I'd come to the throne of a postage stamp-sized kingdom comprising mountain peaks, deep gorges, and everything in between, which turned out to be almost entirely steep, rocky slopes. The books I inherited in my uncle's library, a small forgotten room that came with the castle, tell me that the topography of my domain is the result of an ancient and ongoing act of violence wherein titanic fire demons trapped deep below the ground battle to visit us. We live such mayfly lives compared to these beasts beneath us that the chaos and upheaval they have wrought appears to us as frozen in, incomprehensible, the very definition of stability, though it is all in churning motion. Language is much the same, ever-changing, bearing the scars and tombstones of the past in its flow. Postage stamp-sized kingdoms. I know it means small, so a postage stamp must have been a very small thing. To know more than that, I would have to spend more time at my late uncle's books, something I would have no objection to, save that a more urgent matter came to my attention. They're saying it's yours, and they're going to disembowel it before the gates, Lord Macon said. Page 1. So I think we can immediately see that I am ignoring a bunch of my own advice there. We'll put some stuff in, right? I think the opening line, if we sort of wrap that two-word details matter into the next line, that's a decent opening, because it carries with it an implicit but. when people say there's never a good reason to cut a baby in half, you can feel the but coming, and my hope there is that you will want to read on because you want to know what the good reason for cutting a baby in half might be. It sort of raises questions from the start, and hopefully immediately starts to give you a feel for the type of person who is talking, the character of him. So now the next line, we've got I, so we know it's in the first person, and that the person who is relating about this rather awful subject is doing so in a comfortable conversational style, as if this is the sort of thing that everyday conversation around the dining table might encompass. So here I think I'm doing what a number of the authors whose page ones I've reviewed have done, which is essentially just to hopefully, I call it laying out the prose wares, to write something that is hopefully well written enough that people will sort of sit up and notice that this is an author who takes some care over the arrangement of their words. They're not just using sort of generic language, and that can be fine, like some very successful authors don't lavish a lot of effort on the prose, but they tell great stories, and those draw people in, and in fact many readers are blind to prose. So as soon as you are relying on or putting a lot of the weight on good prose to bring an audience in, you're immediately narrowing your potential audience, your readership, to a potentially, I guess, a niche, and there's the further danger that they might not like your prose. It might not be good. So those are all things to be considered, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm just being a bit indulgent, writing out some pretty sentences, and hoping to draw people in with prose. And still I'm ignoring my own advice about action and dialogue, because because it's being narrated, it is in a sense a form of dialogue or monologue, but there's certainly no action going on here. It's just some guy pontificating, and hopefully he's pontificating about things that are in some way interesting or raise their own questions, like the baby chopping up issue. And here the casting of Superman as somebody from ancient literature speaks to the post-apocalyptic nature of the world that Jorg comes from. So there's a bit of world building in there, and combined with some character building, because it's talking about him being a, shall we say, morally grey person who's not overly concerned with the niceties of these things. And then we talk about there's a bit more world building, I guess. The anachronism of the use of the word postage stamp, which he doesn't actually know what it means anymore. You find that out later. And still no action, no problems presented. He's just rambling on about geology. So but again, hopefully there's some scene setting there. Looking at it now, it's I'm in some sense walking a roughshod over the advice that I give, and yet I feel this turns out to be a page one that I'm fairly happy with. I really like the story, and the page one is fine. I think I've said there, look, if I was this story, it's gone into an anthology, and the owners of anthologies, certainly Sean, but I think in general, if they inviting a known author to contribute, they often like it if the known author writes a story connected with one of their better known works, or any of their works, because then that author is more likely to be bringing a readership with them, people who will buy the anthology to read, in this case, a story about Jorg. And if I was just to write a random short story, then fewer of my readers would follow me into the anthology in order to read it. Some would, but some would say, well, I have no idea what this story is about. It's not about a character that concerns me. And so they would be less likely to. Moreover, many readers just don't like short stories. It's a much smaller market than the market for books. And although I like writing them myself, I have to admit I don't read a lot of short stories. I'm not a great fan of reading them, which is weird. But and so this short story, coming from the larger world and being primarily aimed at people who already know those books, it's written in such a way that someone who comes to it entirely cold hopefully can enjoy the story and have a good experience. But some of the indulgence here is simply because I know I'm talking to Jorg fans, and Jorg fans will be happy to just sit back and listen to him do his monologues, and so in that sense it's indulgent and less requiring to hook the readership in the same way that an entirely new story would have to. It is what it is in that sense. So more world building about the kingdom, and then on the very last line we finally get that long-awaited bit of I guess dialogue. It is, at least it's in speech quotes, and it presents it harks back to the start of the title of the story, the graphic at the top, and the first lines, all of which are talking about a baby. And that's really the problem and the tension that is secreted away in this. I would invite you to, on a first page, write in general a more open problem and a more open source of tension, but there is a promise of tension in just the fact that we're talking about immediately in line one, we're talking about cutting babies in half. The story is called Solomon, which harks back to the Bible story of cutting a baby in half. And on the last line of page 1, they're saying it's yours and they're going to disembowel it before the gates. It implies that someone has brought some bastard child of Jorg's to the gates and is threatening to chop it up. And for all of those of you who don't hate babies, that presents a problem and a source of tension. Will this baby die? The reader who has no knowledge of this might say, and how is Jorg going to save it? While the rest of you are saying to yourselves, is Jorg going to save it? Does he care? Will he send out a sharper knife for them to use? We'll find out. But that's the page 1, and I hope it inspires you to buy Unbound and read it, because I think it is a good story. And yeah, I think the page 1's decent, but I think the story as a whole is really pretty good. And I'll leave it there. I will hopefully pick another of my page 1s that maybe is more illustrative of the things that I encourage other people to do, and discuss that one as well in future. Thank you very much. I'm going to do my traditional hunt for the right button. Bye.